Now check it with Ndidi Adekunle. See, every teacher should, to a very large extent, be able to teach certain basic subjects, especially at the elementary level. As a matter of fact, it's expected that as an elementary school teacher, you should be able to teach pretty much every subject available. You should be able to teach math, English, literacy, that is, numeracy, that is, depending on what name you choose to go by at your school. Teach CRK, teach basic science, teach this and that. Yes, but you see, when it comes, there's a particular subject that you cannot just teach, and schools should stop just throwing just anybody to teach that subject, and that subject is reading. You see, to teach reading is an art. You can call it an art or call it a science. Yeah, in one hand it's an art, in another hand is a science. In other words, it's a system of understanding. There's a way to teach it to get the results to be effective. You can't just bring a teacher fresh from school and throw her in a class to teach reading. When you do that, you jeopardize your children's learning. I have been a teacher who, fresh out of school, was thrown into a class to teach reading, and I had a very tough time of it. It took me a long time. It took me some time, qualitative time, of pain, of crying, of oh no, why? How do I go about this? Before I could put it together, before I could wrap it around my head how to go about it. And at the end of my learning, this is the final verdict. Teaching is not teaching reading. Reading is not something you shove at a teacher to do. It's a process. It takes learning. It's an art that needs teaching. You need to teach your teacher how to teach reading, the rudiments of teaching reading. Unless they are coming straight out of Montessori school or straight out of some school where they are taught to teach reading. If that is not the case, as educated as they are, they may have a PhD, they may have a master's degree. If they are not taught the rudiments of teaching reading, you shouldn't put such a teacher in that class. Apart from that, it also takes a certain measure of patience, a certain measure of consistency, a certain measure of repetition that may not come natural for every teacher. That doesn't mean that they're any less expert. That doesn't mean that they're any less good. Yeah, that doesn't mean that they're any less efficient. As teachers, in other areas they will perform excellently. But teaching reading is something for people who are skilled at it. For people who are skilled at it, who can be that patient, who can be that repetitious, who can be that quiet and presence of mind. It takes a certain measure of presence of mind to teach reading effectively to children. Consistent application, consistent patient application, because you can be consistent in applying without being patient. Consistent, patient, quiet application. Insistence, consistent understanding of a procedure and following it through and repeating it term, session after session. Yes, if you don't have a teacher who can do that, you shouldn't put that. You should put just any teacher, throw just any teacher into a class that teaches reading. Into a reading class, you have to put them through the process of learning how to teach reading. If you do that, you will jeopardize your school's practice. You jeopardize your children's learning, and you have to keep coming back to the drawing board because you're going to have children who need remedials later on as they go along in grade school. It will seem like the teacher doesn't know their job. It will seem like the teacher isn't good, but it's not the teacher's fault. It is not the teacher's fault. If you have not gone through as a school the process to teach the teacher, to train the teacher on how to teach reading. Yes. So if you're that school and you're having a problem with the effectiveness of teaching reading at your school, you're having quite a number of children come out needing remedials in further grade classes. I'd like to tell a story about some of my first experiences with teaching. I remember After coming out of education school, that's after graduating from university, studying education management with an option in economics, I came to take a job. I came to take a teaching job. I came home to Lagos to take a teaching job, and the first class, I was, yeah, the first class that incidentally, I was blessed with a position, with a teaching position that was rare. Apparently, in the school where I worked, you had to do what they called understudying for a number of years before you were allowed to take a class. With me, they made me understudy for 2 weeks. I was asked to sit back, like they benched me, benched me for 2 weeks, for just 2 weeks, to just watch how things are done, and then I was quickly incorporated into the class. um, I didn't realize how much of a blessing that was. I didn't even know at the time that it was a no. It wasn't something that was done at all. What they said to me was, indeed, you wait. Um, there's a teacher we're expecting you to relieve her of her job. She's leaving, at the end of the month. So when she leaves, you take her class. So and that is what happened. I didn't realize at the time that um, that was not normal. Yes, but by the time I started to teach the class, one of the things that I was expected to teach was reading, and I wasn't given like a job description. You get a job. You're given a job description. I wasn't exactly given a job description. All I understood was this is the content we have. You teach it to the children, and which is pretty much understood. Yeah. So, and apparently it wasn't normal practice to give job descriptions. I would ask, do I have a job description? Is there any particular thing? Because you had supervisors coming by now and then. You're wondering what exactly are they looking out for. You're not sure, what exactly it is they're looking out for. Because at some point you begin to realize that there's certain things they're looking out for that you may not be aware of. Not the regular. Not the regular. There's something that makes the school better than one school better than the other. So what are those things that the school is looking out for? I didn't have all that information. Apparently, one of the things that my school was looking out for was one of the things that was being evaluated upon was, or I was going to be evaluated by, um, was the fact that my children, the class I was given at the time was nursery two. Apparently, I was supposed to ensure that all my 25 to 26 children in my class at the time, each of them, all of them, were supposed to have learned to read fluently by the time they leave in my class. These are children who are 5 year old, 6 year old. Most of them were 5 year old. The number of them were 6 year old. By the time they're leaving nursery two, those of us who know about that class know about these things, know that nursery two is what we call the reading class. That's the class where reading has been, they've been taught to read. There has been a process of, a system laid down for teaching the children for teaching our pupils how to read, starting from preschool, as it were. Yeah, then they go through the rudiments of the chunk of work that they have to do for each class up until they get to nursery two. By the end of nursery two, they should have learned the basics of reading enough to carry them through a regular book. A regular book, yes, enough to take them to primary one. By nursery two, by the end of the third term of nursery two, children should be able to read their question papers and attempt their questions without being spoon-fed, without being necessarily led to. So by the third term of nursery two, you should have been able to achieve that. Now, at the end of the third term, I they found about four of my children not able to read to the extent at which they were expected to be. My children, those children were not found to be if efficient. They were not found to be reading efficient. They were not found to be at the reading level they were supposed to be at in readiness for primary one. And and I was blamed for that. Yes, I was blamed for that. That got me. That threw me back to a very large extent. It threw me like, how in the world? I didn't even know that was expected of me. I didn't understand the system. I didn't know that that was expected of me. That's not something that is taught you in education school. So it's not the kind of thing that you're told you should know. It's pretty unfair to tell a new teacher you should have known that. Oh, sorry, as I was saying before I was interrupted. I've been asked to make my videos as natural and as relatable as possible. So here goes. Let's just take this one from here. Yes, like I was saying earlier, do not employ a teacher to teach reading at your school if your teacher has not been trained and is skilled. In other words, your teacher is not skilled at teaching reading. There's a system to teaching reading that every teacher who teaches reading ought to know. Because you see, reading is a crucial subject matter. It's not like any other. You cannot the remedials for reading is wide. So if you miss it at the initial stage, you've missed it. You've missed so much. I mean, what it means is that if a child gets up to grade one, that's elementary